Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I always don't like interrupting people's conversations. It's lovely. It's lovely to hear the synagogue being so vibrant, but I always feel bad when everyone's having a lovely conversation and I come along and interrupt it. But I'm used to sort of making unpopular decisions. You like this? Oh, thank you. It's just so you won't miss me. It gives me absolute great pleasure to welcome back student Rabbi Eleanor Davis. Is it your fourth year? It's the same.
I'm the same year as
Martina, who had last week. So no pressure on. The service last week was brilliant. But the fact I always say, I'd love to invite you back. It always gives me pleasure when I do that, and it gives even more pleasure when they do come back. And some of the people who are there have come back as well. So you must have done something right. So we really look forward to your service.
Thank you.
And all I'm going to do is leave it up to you.
Thank you. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Those of you who were here with me last time may know that it's quite fun, I think, to do something just a little bit different at the very beginning of our service. We'll get a certain way in, and then hopefully things will get back to the comfortable and familiar and you won't feel totally at sea. But we're going to start on page 117. But after that, we're then going to take just a little bit of jumping around to find some particular prayers and songs that might be appropriate for this Shabbat, where we're reading Parashat. Well, you tell me, which parasha are we reading today? Thank you, Matot and Maseh, and it's Maseh that we're actually going to be reading from today. So thank you. It's nice to know that people online are awake and with us as well this morning. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. So page 117, and if you wish to rise for Matovu, please do. Please be seated and do join me on page 118 as we begin with some morning blessings. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam pokeach ivrim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam malbish arumim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zokef kefufim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asa li kol tzorki. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hanoten liya'ef koach. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hama'avir sheina me'enai utnuma me'af apai. In that last blessing, we thank God for taking the sleep away from our eyes and the slumber from our eyelids. So hopefully you are awake enough to join me, flipping forwards to page 200. And we will be towards the bottom of the page, where it says on page 200, God, you show me the path of life. In your presence there is fullness of joy. Birth is a beginning even, and death a destination, and life is a journey. From childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength or strength to weakness and often back again. From health to sickness and back we pray to health again. From offence to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination, and life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage to life everlasting. Our journey this morning is going to take us now to page 240, because I'm not so ambitious this morning as to take you on an entire life's journey, just on a small journey this morning through our prayer service. which is a kind of quest in words for something spiritual today. And so in the middle of page 240, the wholehearted searching for God in itself constitutes the finding of God. For there are two kinds of searching. There is the searching for something that is lost, like, shall we say, a precious stone. Now, the process of searching for the stone and the act of finding the stone, those are completely separated from one another in time. We can describe the very point at which the searching ended and the finding began. But the search for God is not of that kind. And those who feel that the search for God must necessarily end in some kind of experience, which will in effect be the finding, are generally disappointed. Now, there is another kind of searching. It may be likened to listening to a piece of music. Now, it is true that the piece of music will probably have a final climax and resolution, and that may be our finding, but that climax, unlike the precious stone, is completely worthless without the musical moments that have preceded it. In fact, we have begun to discover that climax as soon as we have heard the first note of the music. And the whole of the listening process not only leads up to the discovery, but is the discovery of the climax. And so we think on page 241 of those who make this search, this journey, seeking God, and how the actual journey itself may be the finding. And we have a beautiful text from our Psalms that tells us about our searching for God and compares it to the sparrow, the swallow, and I think even later on, perhaps even a deer somewhere. So in the middle of page 241, we will hear and perhaps even sing My Yedidot. Try to take these themes with us of the journey that we're making today, of the fact that maybe the finding may even happen along the way, as we turn back to the more familiar surroundings of page 135. On page 135, we will come to Yishtabach. If you wish to rise physically, spiritually, please do.
בשמיים ובארץ, כי לך אדוני אלוהינו, אלוהי אבותינו, שיר ושפחה, הלל וזמרה, ברכות והודאות, מעתה ועד עולם, ברוך אתה אדוני, הבוחר בשירי
Please be seated and join me on page 136. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech ha'olam, yotzer or uvorei choshech, osei shalom uvorei et hakol. Hame'ir la'aretz v'ladarim aleha barachamim, uvetuvo mechadesh b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh v'reshit. Ma rabu ma'asecha Adonai, kulam b'chochma asita, mal'ah ha'aretz kinyanecha. Tit barach Adonai Eloheinu al shevach ma'aseh yadecha va'al mo'orei or she'asita yefa'arucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai ser ha'ma'orot. Great is your love for us, eternal God, and abundant your compassion. Our ancestors trusted in you, and you taught them the laws of life. So be gracious to us and teach us. Incline our hearts to hear your words, to know and understand, to learn and teach, and with love to uphold the truths of your Torah. Enlighten us with your teaching, make us faithful to your commandments, and wholehearted in the love and awe of your name. For in love you summon us to serve you and proclaim your unity. We praise you, O God. In love you have called your people Israel to serve you. We'll stay standing just for a moment longer for those tuned to be applied to more familiar words. Seated, please join me in still reading. Emet v'yatziv v'yashar v'kayam v'tov v'yafeh hadavar hazeh aleinu le'olam va'ed. Emet sha'asit Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu malkeinu melech avotenu yotzreinu tzur yeshuatenu podenu u'matzilenu me'olam hu shemecha ein Elohim zulatecha. Emet, atahu rishon, ve'atahu acharon, umi baladecha ein lanu melech, mimitzrayim ge'otanu Adonai Eloheinu, umi beit avadim peditanu, Moshe uMiriam v'nei Yisrael, lecha anu shira b'simcha rabba ve'amru chulam. Page 140, we'll rise to begin our Amidah together. Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el, Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim v'Konei Hakol, Zocher Hasdei Avot v'Imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei v'Neihem, L'ma'am Shemo be'ahava, Melech Ozer Mashiach Magen, Baruch Ata Adonai, Magen Avraham, Ve'ezrat Sarah. Ata Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayei Meitim Ata Rav Lahoshia, Mashiv HaRuach, Umorid HaGeshem, Mazriach HaShemesh, Umorid HaTal. Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed, Mechayei Meitim Rachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim V'Rofei Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umakayem Emunato Lishenei Afar. Mi Chamocha Ba'al Gevurot, Umi Dolelach, Melech Memit Umachayei, Matzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman Ata Lahachayot Meitim, Baruch Ata Adonai, Machayei HaMeitim. נקדש את שמך בעולם כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום ככתוב על יד נביאך. כבודו מלא עולם. ממקומך מלכנו תופיע ותמלוך עלינו, כי מחכים אנחנו לך. Please be seated at the bottom of page 142. You inspired our ancestors to hallow this day for your service. When, upon its coming, we pause to contemplate our life, we learn anew that we do not live by bread alone, but also by the spiritual nourishment we receive when we open ourselves to your influence. We thank you for the Sabbath day and for the opportunity it offers to enhance the quality of our lives. We thank you for its joy and for its peace. May our worship help us to take into our hearts its message of holiness and consecrate all our days by devotion to what is true, beautiful, and good. Our God and God of our ancestors, may our rest on this day be pleasing in your sight. Sanctify us by your commandments and make us loyal to your teaching. Satisfy us with your goodness, gladden us with your salvation, and purify our hearts to serve you in truth. In your gracious love, Eternal One, let the holiness of your Sabbath enter our hearts, and may all Israel who hallow your name be exalted by its peace. We praise you, O God, for the holiness of the Sabbath. Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu ba'amecha Yisrael, utefilatam ba'ahavat tekabel, utehi l'ratzon tamid avodat Yisrael amecha, baruch ata Adonai, she'otcha levadecha b'yira na'avod. Modim anachnu lach, she'ata hu Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu la'olam va'ed. Tzur chayenu, magen yishenu, ata hu l'dor v'ador. Nodeh lecha, m'saper tehilatecha, al chayenu ha'mesurim biyadecha, ve'al nishmotenu ha'bekudot lach, ve'al nisecha shebechol yom imanu, ve'al niflotecha v'tovotecha shebechol eit, erev v'voker v'tzoharayim. Baruch ata Adonai, hatov shimcha u'lecha na'eh lahodot.
Sim, 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 shalom tova uvracha. Sim, sim, shalom tova uvracha. Elohim
Take a few quiet moments now for ourselves. You might want to read the meditation on page 145, 146. You might like just a few quiet moments for whatever prayers we haven't yet spoken aloud together this morning. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable to you, O God, my rock and my redeemer. just pause to say it is a real treat for me to be in a service with such beautiful music. So thank you both.
Not as good as next door, though. Don't say that.
Shh. You don't tell my husband that I'm complimenting another service music provider, but it is beautiful this morning, so thank you. We're going to turn to page 481 for the beginning of our Torah service. Page 481. If you wish to stand already, feel free, but certainly if you are coming forward to do something, please do. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Gadlu l'Adonai iti, u'naromama shemo yachdav. It is, perfectly. So our reading today is taken from very near the end of the book of Numbers. We are at the end of 40 years wandering in the wilderness, nearly. And you think you get to the end, and then you realise there's still a few chapters of Numbers left, and there's the whole book of Deuteronomy. But trust me, the Israelites physically are nearly about to step into the land. There is a question, though, because what our portion is going to do is take us through all the 42 stages that the Israelites travelled in the wilderness. And Torah could have just said, finally, they made it to the edge of the wilderness. Job done. And we have a tradition that there are no wasted words in Torah. So why do we have all of this? There's an explanation given along the way for a couple of the places. But for most of them, if there's meaning in preserving these names, Torah relies on you to remember what that meaning was, because it doesn't tell you always what happened there as we go through. So this is part of your challenge for this morning. As we go through, can you rack your brains and remember that place name? What happened there? The other big challenge is to do with what isn't mentioned. And this is also exciting. there's one big thing that ought to be mentioned, even in what we're going to read, that doesn't get mentioned. So see if you can spot what that is that isn't there. I think it's also a really interesting challenge for us to think about when we tell our own stories. What do you include and what do you leave out? Sometimes we're very good at the including. Sometimes we're very good at the leaving out. The art is to know which to do when. So this is our challenge for today. As I read, even in the Hebrew, we will have an English translation. Listen out for a lot of vayis'u, which means they set out, and a lot of vayachanu, which means they encamped, they set up their tents. And that will help you to hear when we're getting into the place names. When we hear they set out from one and they encamped in another. So that should help you find your way. If you're following in a Chumash, we're going to be in Numbers chapter 33, verse 1. And if you just want to listen, you'll get the English as well. So we're going to call up for our Torah reading. I don't have a Hebrew name to call you up, but you're called up.
I'm called up. I'm here.
Thank you.
Baruchu et Adonai Hamavorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamavorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam. Asher b'chabanu mikol ha'amim. V'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai notein ha'torah.
Amen. Please stay. I'm used to somebody staying and checking that I'm reading the right thing.
Right.
So,
Numbers 33.
Numbers 33.
Go on, don't wait for me.
If you want a slightly larger print, I have paper.
Oh, right,
Is that easy? It's the front page and then the front page of the next one. So, Numbers 33, verse 1. Eile mas'ei b'nei Yisrael, asher yatz'u me'eretz Mitzrayim, letzivrotam b'yad Moshe v'Aharon. Vayichtov Moshe et motza'ehem lemas'ehem al pi Adonai, ve'ele mas'ehem lemotza'ehem. Vayis'u me'Ramses b'chodesh harishon ב-15 יום לחודש הראשון, ממחרת הפסח יצאו בני ישראל ביד רמה לעיני כל מצרים. ומצרים מקברים את אשר היכה אדוני בהם כל בכור, ואלוהיהם עשה אדוני שבטים. ויסעו בני ישראל מרמסס ויחנו בסוכות. ויסעו מסוכות ויחנו באיתם אשר בקצה המדבר. ויסעו מאיתם וישוב על פי החירות אשר על פני בעל צפון. ויחנו לפני מגדול. ויסעו מפני החירות ויעברו בתוך הים המדברה. וילכו דרך 3 ימים במדבר איתם. ויחנו במרה. ויסעו ממרה ויבואו אלימה, ובאלים 12 עינת מים ו70 תמרים. ויחנו שם. ויסעו מאלים ויחנו על ים סוף, ויסעו מים סוף ויחנו במדבר סין, ויסעו ממדבר סין ויחנו בדופקה, ויסעו מדופקה ויחנו ואלוש, ויסעו מאלוש ויחנו ברפידים, ולא היה שם מים לעם לשתות. ויסעו מרפידים ויחנו במדבר סיני. And in English?
These were the marches of the Israelites who started out from the land of Egypt, troop by troop, in the charge of Moses and Aaron. Moses recorded the starting points of their various marches as directed by Adonai. Their marches by starting points were as follows. They set out from Ramesses in the first month, on the 15th day of the first month. It was on the morrow of the Passover offering that the Israelites started out defiantly, in plain view of all the Egyptians. The Egyptians, meanwhile, were burying those among them whom Adonai had struck down, every male firstborn, whereby Adonai executed judgment on their gods. The Israelites set out from Ramesses and encamped at Succoth. They set out from Succoth and encamped at Etham, which is on the edge of the wilderness. They set out from Etham and turned about toward Pi Hahiroth, which faces Baal Zephon, and they encamped before Migdol. They set out from Pene Hahiroth and passed through the sea into the wilderness. And they made a 3 days' journey in the wilderness of Etham and encamped at Marah. They set out from Marah and came to Elim. There were 12 springs in Elim and 70 palm trees, so they encamped there. They set out from Elim and encamped by the Sea of Reeds. They set out from the Sea of Reeds and encamped in the wilderness of Sin. They set out from the wilderness of Sin and encamped at Dophkah. They set out from Dophkah and encamped at Elush. They set out from Elush and encamped at Rephidim. It was there that the people had no water to drink. They set out from Rephidim and encamped in the wilderness of Sinai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'hayei olam natah b'torcheinu. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah.
Amen. Shukrach.
We need the...
Can I sit down?
Are you going to introduce it?
You introduce it.
So the scroll is seated. We can be seated too. Our Haftarah today, I was really torn with our Torah reading because there's too much, as usual, there's too much good stuff in Torah. So what do you choose? Did we read the chapter that I've just read? Or did we read the one before, which you'll see what happened. So instead I compromised and I picked the Haftarah that echoes what happened in the chapter before our Torah reading, which is quite exciting. So in that chapter, the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh all approach Moses. They say, "We have lots of cattle. We've just come to this place, just before Israel, where the land is really good for cattle. Can we settle here instead of crossing over into that land of Israel?" And once Moses establishes that actually they're still willing to go and fight, to go and help conquer that land, once that happens, he says, yes, that's fine, you can stay here, this land is okay for you. Our Haftarah is the continuation. Our Haftarah is when the fighting is done, they've sorted out the land, and now these 2.5 tribes who wanted something that suited them, the land that was good for them, they now get to settle in that land. And Joshua sends them off to claim it. But he doesn't just send them off. Moses was suspicious when he first heard, but Joshua sends them off with a blessing. And so I think it's an interesting question. When you travel together with somebody for a period of time, you might work with them to make the future, but ultimately your destination is going to put you somewhere a little bit different. Do you get a bit grumpy that they're not going to end up in the place that you hoped, in the same place as you are? Or do you manage somehow to send them off with a blessing onto the thing that's really suitable for them, even though it's not quite the same as yours? So our Haftarah is taken from the book of Joshua, chapter 22. I'm going to give you that back in case it's easier.
Okay.
Kevin.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar b'nviim tovim, v'ratzav v'divreihem, hanemorim ba'emet. Baruch atah Adonai, habaher b'torah, u'v'moshe avdo, u'v'Yisrael amo, u'v'mi'i ha'emet v'tzedek. Then Joshua summoned the Reubenites, the Gadites, and half the tribe of Manasseh, and said to them, "You have observed all that Moses, the servant of the Eternal One, commanded you, and have obeyed me in everything that I commanded you. You have not forsaken your kindred, though, for long years down to this day, but have faithfully observed the instruction of the Eternal, your God. Now the Eternal One, your God, has given you kindred rest, as God promised them. Therefore, turn and go to your homes, to the land of your holdings beyond the Jordan, that Moses, the servant of God, assigned to you. But be very careful to fulfill the instruction and the teaching that Moses, the servant of God, enjoined upon you, to love the Eternal your God, to walk in godly ways, to keep the commandments, and to hold fast to God, and to render the service with all your heart and soul." Then Joshua blessed them and dismissed them, and they went to their homes. To the one half tribe of Manasseh, Moses had assigned territory to Bashan, and to other Joshua, who assigned territory on the west side of the Jordan, with their kindred. Furthermore, when Joshua sent the 2.5 tribes off to their homes, he blessed them, and said to them, "Return to your homes with great wealth, with very much livestock, with silver and gold, with copper and iron, and with a great quantity of clothing. Share the spoil of your enemies with your kin." So the Reubenites, the Gadites, and half the tribe of Manasseh left the Israelites at Shiloh in the land of Canaan, and made their way back to the land of Gilead, the land of their holding, which they had acquired by the command of God through Moses. When they came to the region of the Jordan in the land of Canaan, the Reubenites and the Gadites and half the tribe of Manasseh built an altar by the Jordan, a great conspicuous altar. They set it... Oh, sorry. All right.
We stop with an altar.
We start with the altar. Okay, you've altered it a bit. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Sir Kol Ha'olim Tzaddik B'chol Hadarot Ha'al Hanema'an Hama'eh V'aseh V'daber U'mkayim Sheb'chol Davarav Emet V'tzedek. Al HaTorah V'al HaVodah V'al V'yim V'al Yom HaShabbat Hazeh Shenata Lanu Adonai Eloheinu L'Kdusha L'Chol L'Kavod U'Tifaret Al HaKol Adonai Eloheinu Anachnu Modim Lach U'Mokim Imotach Yitbarach Shimcha B'fi Kol HaTamid Olam Va'ed Baruch Atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. Thank you for joining in. Well. I know you're doing the community, sorry. Judith?
Please.
Eternal God, whose dominion embraces the universe, we ask your blessing for our monarch, King Charles, and all the royal family, for those who govern our country, and for all who influence the quality of its national life. Make them conscious of their responsibility and teach them to exercise it in accordance with your will. May we all help to fashion in this country a society that excels in freedom and justice, tolerance and compassion, so that it may be a force for righteousness and peace in the life of humanity.
Amen.
Amen.
Eternal God, as you blessed our ancestors in generations past, bless now this congregation, its leaders and its members, and all who enters this synagogue to meet, to study and to pray. Comfort the sorrowing hearts amongst us and heal those in anxiety or pain.
We'll pause a moment for a blessing for healing and say, Creator of all, giver of wisdom, giver of life, you bring the new day's sun. Your golden light shines upon us. Even in our pain and our deepest sorrow, your still small voice is present. God, as you are merciful and loving in your ways, show us compassion when we hurt. And so we pause now to name aloud or in our hearts those who are unwell, and feel free to mention names as I look around the room.
My cousin Nikki and our friend Lila Ward. Julia Lane.
Kathy Gleadle, who is beginning very slowly to recover from 3 years of the effect of long COVID.
Thank you.
Esther, as well from our community, and my mother-in-law Mabel, who were hoping to get out of bed today to take her out to be well.
Thank you.
Yeah. Can I mention my grandson William, who is recovering from a broken leg, quite well now, and also from the Stevenage community, Julian Esterson, Evelyn Goldwater, and Susan Lewis. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else online?
My grandson Abe was also recovering from a broken leg.
Oh gosh.
Wow. Thank you.
And my neighbour Catherine Raj Tucker.
Thank you. For all of them, we ask God, graciously shelter them under your wings and grant them peace and refuah shlema, a full and complete recovery.
May we all find here community and friendship, renewal of purpose and hope, a deeper understanding of our heritage, and a sense of your abiding presence. Bless all congregations of the House of Israel throughout the world. Let those who live under oppressive rule soon be freed, and may we all unite to witness to your truth and do your will. Amen.
Eternal God, our rock and redeemer, grant blessing to the state of Israel, created to fulfill an age-old dream and to be a haven for the oppressed. Inspire its leaders and citizens with faithfulness to the aims of its founders, to develop the land for the benefit of all its inhabitants, and to implement the prophetic ideals of liberty and justice. May they live in harmony with one another and in peace with their neighbours, and cause to come true once more the ancient vision that out of Zion shall go forth Torah and the word of God from Jerusalem.
Amen. It's on the thing.
Eternal One, rock of our existence, the source and sustainer of life, as President Putin wages war on Ukraine and the forces of autocracy wreak havoc and attempt to instill terror and fear in every heart, we call on you to strengthen the people of Ukraine in their collective will to muster the courage and the fortitude to withstand the onslaught, strengthened by the knowledge that democratic nations across the world stand in solidarity with them and will do everything necessary to support their efforts to resist the imposition of tyranny. Meanwhile, as ordinary people everywhere, like ourselves, witness the horror and feel helpless and hopeless in the face of overwhelming events beyond our control, we ask you to enable us to understand that we are not powerless to help, that our deeds, however small, matter, and that above all, knowing that despair is the dearest friend of tyrants, we have the obligation to hope and to demonstrate our constant fidelity to the enduring values of peace and freedom, equality and justice. May this be our will, and let us say Amen.
I'm glad we have somebody strong holding the scroll today, because we have a new month coming up in this coming week. Rosh Chodesh will come soon, and so in the middle of page 485. Eternal One, our God and God of our ancestors, may the new month be for us a time of renewal. Grant to each one of us a long life of peace, welfare and blessing, a life of prosperity and health, a life guarded by conscience, unmarred by self-reproach or shame, a life exalted by love of Torah and reverence for the divine, a life in which the longings of our hearts may be fulfilled for good. Rosh Chodesh Av Yihiyeh B'Yom Revi'i, the new month of Av will begin on Wednesday.
It's traditional to sing Hadashehu to a tune of one of the festivals in the coming month, and of course Av contains the fast Tish B'Av, the 9th of Av, which is the day of mourning, so we're going to use a traditional quite sad tune, Eli Tzion, for this.
Yehalalu et Shem Adonai, ki niskav shemo levado. Page 488. God's teaching is perfect, reviving the soul. God's word is unfailing, making wise the simple. God's precepts are right, delighting the mind. God's commandments are clear, enlightening the eyes. God's doctrine is pure, enduring forever. God's guidance is true and altogether just.
Oh,
seated. If you've been watching the tennis lately, you have probably seen the ball boys and girls who alternate between like statue stillness and suddenly leaping into amazingly accurate action. These days, they're all from schools local to Wimbledon, but between 1946 and 1966, all ball boys for Wimbledon championships were drawn from Bernardo's children's homes, children in care. Two of the 1960s ball boys, Winston Norton and Sam Hill, have recently had their oral histories collected by the Museum of London. Their Hertfordshire home, a school known as Goldings, was designed as a place where boys would learn a trade, ready for an apprenticeship that could then set them on the path to their own independent lives. But once a year, those trade studies suspended just a little bit for a few months of extra training with the school vicar, and then 60 boys were selected as fit enough and smart enough for something different, to go to Wimbledon. Being a ball boy meant 2 hours in the coach each way, every day for a fortnight, but the boys loved it. It may have been the glamour of meeting famous sports people, that was certainly a draw, as was the possibility of being on television for just a few moments. But the biggest thing that former ball boys remember was its eye-opening potential. Winston Norton described it as a glimpse beyond their school life as charity cases. It showed me, he said, that there was another world out there, apart from Goldings. For the boys, it was a place to be respectful, but also to learn to look anyone in the eye. Without necessarily going on to work in sport, the experience provided an important stage of those boys' lives, helping them to expand their horizons and feel capable of striking out in new directions. Few life journeys, as we mainly know, are a simple A to Z. Most of them are marked by different stages along the way, but not always as literally as the Israelites in Parshat Maseh today. We read the first 15 verses of a chapter which recalls the 42 stages of the Israelites' wanderings over 40 years in the wilderness. And as I told you at the time, we hear a lot of this. They set out from Ramses and encamped at Sukkot. They set out from Sukkot and they encamped at Etam. A lot of that. But as I mentioned earlier, not every place listed in this overview was included in the earlier chapters of Torah, and not everything listed in those earlier chapters gets a mention here. In 13th century France, a guy called Chizkuni was commentating on Torah. He noticed this and he explained that these, and not necessarily anything recorded earlier, these were the real stages of the journey. In our own lives too, we know that sometimes what seems like a big deal at the time, think back to when you were waiting for GCSE or O-level results, in time, they may fade away as nothing, but things that you just totally took in your stride at the time may later turn out to be major milestones. Perhaps Maseh's list of stages teach us something about what makes a stage worth counting. The opening 2 verses of our chapter emphasized something really easy to miss. They said, "These were the marches of the Israelites who started out from the land of Egypt. Moses recorded the starting points of their various marches as directed by the Eternal. Their marches by starting points were ... As a later 12th century Spanish commentator Ibn Ezra notes, our chapter repeatedly describes the Israelites starting out from somewhere. And as their journeys continue, we don't hear that they arrive, only that they pitch their tents and then they set off again somewhere. So why so much emphasis on starting out again and again? The rabbis of the Talmud say more than once that all beginnings are hard. In the case of the Israelites, this might apply very practically. Think how much work it takes to pack up your whole living quarters and God's too, the tabernacle and everything that goes with that, and then repeat that 41 times. A 16th century Italian commentator known as Sforno explains that despite the difficulties, especially because they had no advanced knowledge of when or where they'd be going, the Israelites never refused to set out again, which is pretty remarkable. They had an ultimate goal, the Promised Land, but on any given day, they wouldn't know where they'd end up. But what mattered to them was that when God told them, set out, they went. The idea of having arrived can be deeply appealing. Just to sit back, enjoy the view, sounds lovely. And I think it might be for a little while. The one exception in the list of setting out and encamping that we read in Numbers chapter 33 is when the Israelites set out from Marah, and then it says, Vayavo'u Elima, they reached Elim, which was the place that you heard of 12 springs of water and 70 palm trees. As their fifth stop on their journey out of Ramses, the oasis of Elim might have seemed heavenly. But barely weeks later, they're on the move again. Travelling towards the Promised Land means setting out from wherever they are again and again. And I think this may be one of the most difficult messages for us to hear in Parshat Mas'eh. The idea that rather than reaching particular stages, the goal is always to set out from somewhere. If the journey matters more than the destination, even more important is to start the journey. Sometimes we get to set out because somebody shows us new possibilities, like those Wimbledon ball boys, for whom the glimpse of another world showed them what more there could be to aim for. Sometimes we simply feel called by a sense that our life, or perhaps the world, is not yet the promised land that it could be. And so we set out on a new journey of becoming. Completing that journey is not essential. Remember that Moses was 80 years old when he set out on this journey with the Israelites. Aged 120, he died before reaching the destination. But that doesn't make it a wasted journey. For us too, each new stage holds the potential to become something learned, something gained, and each detour, the potential for new wonders along the way. Even if you do get to where you're going, you're entitled to a breather, to take some time to look back over how you got this far, and to think about what proved to be a real stage in your journey. But then, if you're truly to live, you need to set out again. However old we become, whether you're 20 or a bit closer to 120, whenever we get comfortable or maybe even achieve our dreams, our challenge is to see new possibilities, to dream new dreams, and to set out to make them reality. So may we all have the courage and the vision to see our last destination reached as just another stepping off point for our next journey. Thank you.
We're going to sing.
Thank you, we can sing. So, we, on a normal day, would be about exactly where we need to be. But today is not a normal day because there are extra simchas and there are really lovely long Torah readings to have. So we're going to sneak in, hopefully, a little bit of extra singing together to make sure that we don't finish too early, because what I definitely don't want to happen is for us to go out, finish Kiddush before anybody else gets out there to eat it. So, Joseph, I'm slightly turning to you on a slightly on the spot. We are going to come to Aleinu, but some communities sometimes do an Ein Keloheinu before they come to Aleinu. Do you think we could maybe on page 528?
Yeah. What tune
Any tune you like. If I'm going to spring things on you, you entirely have the choice of tune.
love dropping Joseph.
No, I can do. I'm just thinking. We'll do the sort of treadmill. Well, Inkle Henu, but.
Vision of the future from a Jewish perspective. As we think about what we want the world to be, what we think our responsibilities in it are going to be. But how do you know what you want the future to look like? Sometimes you do that by going back to think about where we've been. Hence, today we had our review of all those stages. The one thing that we haven't done today is look at the specific set of reading, the prayers and readings on various themes that goes with our Torah portion today. So on page 321, before we come to our vision of the future, we'll take just a few moments to think about the Jewish past that we have behind us. Page 321. And this is where our Torah reading began. Eile mas'ei v'nei Yisrael asher yatz'u me'eretz Mitzrayim. These are the stages of the journey of the children of Israel who came out of Egypt. Jewish history may be seen as one long journey which began even before Egypt, when God said to Abraham, and from your birthplace, and from your ancestral home to the land that I will show you. Abraham and Sarah were not forced to leave their native land, nor did they go in search of wealth or pleasure. Their errand was to build a society that would reflect God's will and be an example to humanity. I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, so that you may be a blessing. Often we have been driven from our homes by war and persecution, and crossed the seas in search of safety and opportunity. Sometimes we have settled on friendly soil for many generations, and sometimes we have been drawn back as by a magnet to our old new homeland. We have gone up to the land to rebuild it and be rebuilt by it. But always, like Abraham and Sarah, we have known ourselves to be engaged upon a journey not yet ended, to a destination not yet reached, a journey towards a better world. Not all have stayed the course. Some have dropped out, but because most have been faithful, we have survived. You who have held fast to the Eternal One, your God, are all alive today. That Jews should be interested in themselves is understandable, but their experience in history has aroused almost as much interest and comment from outside observers. Their stubborn fidelity, our stubborn fidelity to the faith of their ancestors, their resilience in adversity, their knack for adapting their talents and energies to change circumstances, have ensured their survival long after the Greek civilization, which treated them with condescension, and the Roman Empire, which held them in contempt, have passed into oblivion. Kingdoms come and go, but Israel abides forever. Surely we who are Jews should take pride in our history, not to boast, not to gloss over our shortcomings, not to idealize or romanticize, and not to dwell on the past, but in wonder and gratitude, so that from the way we have already come, we may draw strength for our onward journey. We see God's guiding hand most clearly when we look back upon the history of our own people, delivered from Egyptian bondage, bound to God by the covenant at Sinai, inspired by prophets and instructed by sages. We survived oppression and exile, overcoming time and again the forces that would have destroyed us. We were beset by the weaknesses and faults common to all humanity, yet it has been our glory to testify to the unity of God, to hold up before the world an example of courage, and to keep alive in dark ages a vision of justice and compassion. Remember the days of old. Consider the years of ages past. Ask your parents, and they will tell you, your elders, and they will inform you. Look to the rock from which you were hewn, the quarry from which you were dug. Look to Abraham your father, and Sarah who bore you. In every generation, we should regard ourselves as if we personally had come out of Egypt. Give ear, my people, to my teaching. Turn your ears to what I say. What we have heard and known, and what our ancestors have told us, we will not hide from our children, but we will tell the coming generation the glory and might of the Eternal One and the wonders God has performed. God established a decree in Jacob and ordained a teaching in Israel, charging our ancestors to make them known to their children, that future generations, yet unborn, might know them and tell their children, so that we might put our confidence in God and not forget God's deeds, but observe God's commandments. God of Israel, teach us to understand our responsibility as Jews, to continue the task begun by earlier generations of our people who heard themselves called in your name to bring light and blessing to all the families of the earth. O God, make us worthy of our great past, that we may become builders of an even greater future. Help your people, bless your possession, tend and exalt them forever. I thanked you earlier for being fantastic. We're just going to keep adding to that this morning. Thank you very much. On page 520, having begun to understand our responsibility as Jews from the past, now we think about what our responsibilities will be as we look to our Jewish future. Page 520, we will rise for the Aleinu. Trusting in you, eternal God, we hope soon to behold the glory of your might, when false gods will vanish from our hearts and idolatry cease forever. Help us to perfect the world by bringing it under your unchallenged rule, when all will invoke your name, relinquish evil, and turn to you alone. May all who dwell on earth come to know that to you every knee must bend and every tongue swear loyalty. Before you, let them humble themselves, and to your glorious name, let them give honour. Let all submit to your sovereign rule. May that time come soon and last forever. For ultimate sovereignty is yours, and to all eternity you will reign in glory. As it is written, the Eternal One shall reign forever. Whatever life is unpredictable. Our blessings and our troubles often come without warning and appear without a reason. But life has the power to transcend loss, and love contains the strength to overcome death as we travel through this life together. And so we pause now to remember Bessie Cheffords, mother of Dennis Cheffords, Golda Hunt, mother of Alan Hunt, Bernard Kenton, husband of Jocelyn Kenton, Gertrude Levin, mother of Ronald Levin, Renee Rose, mother of Stuart Rose, Leonard Silverman, husband of Layla Silverman, Annette Zeidel, mother of Brigitte Levin, Isaac and Simone Zeidel, grandparents of Brigitte Levin. I'll leave just a moment in case there are other names that people are thinking of at this time. I will look around the room, but please, if you're on Zoom and wish to mention an extra name, do unmute and say.
I would like to remember in the past few weeks I lost two colleagues, joint colleagues throughout secondary school, even and university. Their names are the Marguerite Bond and the Merlin Monday.
Thank you. However long or short their time in our lives, those we remember today were precious to us. Zichronam livracha, their memory remains in our hearts as a continual blessing. Grateful for the gift of their lives and our lives, we'll sanctify God in the words of Kaddish on page 524, as we say, Yit gadal v'yit kadash shmei rabbah, be'alma divrach yerutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayeichon v'yomeichon, v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, v'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach le'olam le'almei almeyam. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yithaleh v'yithalal shemei dikudasha barichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran ba'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu b'kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav v'ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol b'nei Adam v'imru amen. And to those who remember, we say, Hamakom yanachem etchem b'toch sha'arei Yisrael. May God, the one who comforts all those who remember, may God comfort you among all the mourners of Israel. Please do be seated.
I'm glad I'm not under any time pressures for announcements and also gratitude, because there's a lot I'd like to say. Eleanor, thank you, that was a lovely service. I was trying to remember why I invited you back, and now I know why. I love the way you introduce your own personality, your own prayers, making it relevant to the Torah reading, even the Kaddish. That was a very moving, your own special thing. It's your own personality, and we love variety here as well, so it doesn't have to be exactly as laid out. So thank you. And you're talking about journeys, and you're on your own journey as a student rabbi. I like to think, as this is one of the stages, being here and leading for us as a part of it as you're on the way, and we look forward to inviting you back as a student and as an ordained rabbi. Please God. Thank you. Tomorrow, I hope I've got this right, it's Fred's Sonnenberg. Stone setting 1:30 at Edgerbury. And we wish you strength and happy memories as you remember Fred. I know you've been thanked quite a few times by Eleanor, but I'm sorry, you're not going to get off that night. The singing was absolutely brilliant from both of you, Joseph and Christine. It was lovely. It really, and especially with the competition next door. So it was absolutely lovely, so thank you. And Adrian, thank you for setting up the Zoom. I'm really glad you did it. So am I. Yeah. And thank you for not involving me in it, so it helps. Yeah, so good. So thank you. It is a great relief that you're able to do it. And Linda, again, thank you for hosting the Zoom. I'm very grateful for that. Linda, are you able to share the screen for... Whilst you do that, I will mention future services. Gwendolyn will be leading on Zoom our joint service on Friday, the Shabbat. And next Saturday, I'm absolutely delighted we've got Rabbi Andrew Goldstein, who always gives something. Yeah, I'll tell him how good that you were, and that will put even more pressure on, and the previous week. So we really look forward to Andrew's service. And Linda, do you want to go through what's on the Zoom? What's on the screen share?
Yeah, I can do. So Monday at 8 o'clock, Monday the 17th at 8 o'clock is the film, The Frisco Kid. So if you want to see a film, then you can go and see that. Hoping this is going to go down. Oh, yeah, here we go. Oh, yeah, some of you might like the gin tasting evening on Wednesday the 19th of July at 8 p.m. Tickets are £17.50 and all profits go to the Harrow Food Bank. So, you know, while you're enjoying your taste of gin, you're also doing a good deed for other people. And then the Bridge Scrabble Rummy Cub, Thursday at 10:30. Meeting the new reform coordinator, Knit and Natter. Change of date, Wednesday the 26th of July at 10:30. This is quite important, marking Tisha B'Av with Mosaic. So Erev of Tisha B'Av, Wednesday the 26th of July at 7 p.m. is a joint study session for the incoming day of Tisha B'Av with Rabbi Kathleen and Rabbi Anthony. And on Thursday, there will be a joint shacharit for all of MJC, including learning of Eicha and select Kinot using the Masorti liturgy. So
We'll leave it there because actually nearly finished. And also the newsletter that me and Linda compile is at the back if anyone wants to take a copy.
Oh, thank you.
Is it in colour, yeah?
Having been asked to take a bit longer, we're now being told, right, they're ready. So, time for one closing song, and then we'll go and join everybody. Lovely. So we are on page 525 for Adon Alam.
Hallelujah.
final blessing before we go to find our places for Kiddush. Baruch atah b'voecha, blessed were you when you came in. Baruch atah b'tzeitecha, blessed may you be when you go out. Adonai yishmor tzeitecha uvoecha me'atah ve'ad olam. May God always guard your going out and your coming in, now and always. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom to everybody online. We will leave you in Linda's capable hands. And we will join the Kiddush. Shabbat shalom.
Right, I'm going to mute them. And we can do Kiddush. We've lost George. I think he's had to go to lunch. But if you've got your Kiddush things, excuse the big glass. I'm not at home. I haven't got my normal things. So, page 566. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam berit olam beini uvein b'nei Yisrael otiv la'olam ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et ha-shamayim ve'et ha'aretz uvayom hashvi'i shavat vayinafash Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Amen. L'chaim, everybody. And you will all be surprised. I don't have any challah, but I do have a bagel or a bagel. So I'll do hamotzi. So Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Enjoy. That's my lunch.
Hello.
The dog must have smelt it because they've got a massive dog called Marley, and he's just come in just as I lifted it up. So oh, here he is. Hello, Marley. You're not having any. Sorry.
Shabbat shalom. Thanks a lot, Linda.
Shabbat shalom.